A Doge meme sold for $5 million. Today was fractionalized. It is worth $220 million. What the F, Yossi?
What the F indeed. We're going to dive deep into the world of fractional ownership with collectibles and NFTs. What are they? Should you be investing in them? And how could you be making money with fractional ownership? Is this just a fad or a way for everyone to get access to the best performing assets in the world? Well, we have Ezra Levine, the CEO of Collectable.com, who will help us break it down. All here, and welcome to Goats and the Metaverse. We are what? Episode number what? 13? 13. Lucky 13. Crazy to think we're 13 shows in. Just a reminder, Goats and the Metaverse, we're the only weekly show that goes deep into the world of collectibles and NFTs right here, streamed every week by your hosts, my man Stan and Yossi the Goat. Today I'm the Goat. You're normally the Goat. Today I'm the Goat.
You're the Goat every day. Welcome to Goats in the Metaverse. I'm excited. We have a jam-packed show. Absolutely nothing has happened to NFTs. They crashed, they came back. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the sports car market. But before we talk, we'll talk to Ezra, which I'm really excited about. But before we talk about anything else, let's check on the Goat Vault. The Goat Vault! We're down.
We're down.
Oh my God.
I didn't even know things could go down.
Things go down.
Yeah.
What do we got? We got $35,000 in Goat Vault. For those of you that don't know what the Goat Vault is, Yossi and I put up 10 grand of our own money, bought a bunch of collectibles, bought some sports cards, bought some NFTs. Just a few $1,000s we started with. We're up to $35,000. And what we're going to do is give it away to you guys, the viewers, the listeners. All you need to do is subscribe to our show. Once we hit 5,000 subscribers, we open up the Goat Vault and give away free NFTs. So what we got some new stuff as well.
Yeah, we bring new stuff into the vault. First of all, we had our good friends from our last show, the NF Terrestrial guys. They gifted us one of their terrestrials, so we added them to the vault. Thank you for that gift. The Goat Vault appreciates it, and the Goats in the Metaverse viewers do too. We added a Noobs NFT. I like them. I like the design of them. They're sweet. They haven't sold out yet, so we'll see if that project goes anywhere, but I really like the design and the characters, and I think there's potential there. And I'm bullish on where this project's going to go. And then you added a bomb. Tell us about the bomb.
The bomb, thebomb.com. The Hundreds, the brand, created these bombs. I believe there was like 25,000 of them or so. It was a bigger number. It wasn't 10,000. They were supposed to reveal last week, and it took them a bunch of days to reveal. They finally revealed. There's a lot of anticipation to it. We bought them at mint at 0.1. Their current value is 0.3. I know some of the more rare ones are selling for a few ETH. And from what I understand, the story is the Hundreds, which is an established brand, is going to start selling merch with these bombs on it. And the merch, the proceeds gets the royalties go to bomb owners. So it's another way of growing an audience or brand utilizing NFTs to make monies, and in this case, make you monies. I think the design is pretty cool. I mean, some of them are cooler than others, but just shows you something very simple and simplistic could grow. And once they start selling gear, shirts, merch, etc., it's an established brand. We'll see where it goes.
We've got established brands minting NFTs. We've got game characters. We've got a whole bunch of stuff. The whole world is moving into the domain of NFTs, and we're putting them in the Goat Vault for you. So just remember to subscribe, and you can stand a chance to win the contents of the vault. What's happened in the market this week?
Nothing has happened in the market.
Should we just skip this section?
No, absolutely not. A lot has happened in the market. Let's take a look at what happened in the last 7 days. CryptoPunks.
Still going up.
Still going up, still number one. But a lot of movement. I believe they touched 450 when we did our emergency broadcast on Saturday. They came all the way down into the low 300s, and they're starting to creep back up. They're I believe somewhere around the 400,000 mark. But
I mean, you use these numbers. I don't know what they are because I only think in ETH. So what you mean? What 400 is that? What 100
US dollars, not
US
pesos,
dollars?
Yeah.
I only like to count things in real money, so I think about it in Ethereum terms, not in anything else.
Talking about Ethereum is up, my friend. Ethereum is up. I believe around $3,800 the last time I checked, which is up pretty significant. Up there you go. Look at that. Boom on the button.
$3,800. Yeah, well, we can't expect any less when the whole world is minting NFTs and all the transactions are happening on the Ethereum network. It only makes sense that I never have enough Ethereum. I don't know about you, but the more I buy, the more I use, and it just seems to be going in one direction. So I understand why Ethereum price is only going up from here on out.
Correct. So going back to our weekly update, punks are up, even though they're down. So technically, you could have sold it. You could have sold it at 450, bought back in at 330, and still made a very lengthy process.
Yeah, I think the peak was about 155 Ethereum, dropped down to about 92. So you could have banked yourself a good old 45 Ethereum in that equation. And if you look at the now conversion on that, you could have made yourself $120,000 if you timed that. Right. If you timed that correctly, $120,000, $160,000 to time that correctly. We all thought we were going into NFT winter. It was over. People were selling left, right, and center. We saw apes flying off the shelves, people dropping down the prices, the floor coming from everyone's feet, and it lasted about 12 hours, and things started to stabilize again. So,
and we're back.
We're back, and things are starting to move back up. So this is the volatility of this market. You've got to be in it with diamond hands in order to be there, or you could be trading and flipping and making money on both the up and the down, as we're seeing people do as well. So that's what's been going on. What else have we been seeing?
Mutants came out on Saturday from our friends at the Bored Ape Yacht Club. They sent out their serum. You could have got M1, which was the basic one. You could have got M2, which was the more rare one. And what's the name of the third one? There was only eight.
The Mega Mutant.
Mega Mutant, which I believe was selling for millions of dollars, if I'm not mistaken.
I saw people turning down offers of $800, $900, $1 million for their Mega Mutant serum, which is a little insane. And then we did see a sale for 350 Ethereum. So at the time, that was about $1.1 million. Someone got gifted. Let's just take a step back here. The Bored Ape Yacht Club decided to do a drop. We didn't know what that drop was going to be. They said Saturday, mutants are coming. No one knew what that was. There was a lot of hype. There was a lot of excitement. What are the mutants? How does it work? And then we learned about this thing called serum. What is serum? Everyone received a serum. Like Stanley said, it was an M1, an M2, or a Mega Mutant serum. I got some M1s, nothing too special. But
I got M2s.
You got some M2s, but those nothing too special were valued at 7 to 8 Ethereum at the time of dropping. So I got, and everyone else who had a Bored Ape, got a free gift to the value of $24,000. Now that's just crazy. Crazy. And people were upset. People were upset that they didn't get an M2. M2s were selling for something like, I don't know, $40,000, $50,000. And then we just heard about the Mega Mutant serum that were valued at over $1 million, and people were not selling. That is the power of this Bored Ape Yacht community, the brand that they have built in something in just under 4 months. That's insane. Or just over 4 months. That is insane.
Well, I think
two M2s.
Correct. But I think the more insane part is that people were upset that they introduced these mutants because now there's more characters and there's more people that are part of the club. So it makes the club less exclusive. So people got gifted 20 grand or 50 grand or whatever these ludicrous numbers are. And they were actually upset because they wanted the club to be more exclusive. And I think that is a big, like, that's how big this brand is, right? That's how big this community is. This is the first time that somebody talked badly about Bored Ape Yacht Club and said, well, this is a money grab. I believe they also released 10,000 of these mutants
that they sold on a Dutch auction.
$96 million in sales in what, less than an hour, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Insane. Like, this whole world is absolutely insane. These guys made $96 million in less than an hour. People got gifted free $25,000 to $75,000, and they're mad about it. They're upset that they got this. This is crazy.
You know, during COVID, people were getting $2,000 checks as their stimulus checks, and here we go. Bored Apes just gave us our $25,000 stimulus. Talk about inflation in the world of NFTs. But I get it. I get why people were concerned. It was similar to what the Punks did, what Lava Labs did with Meebits. And Meebits, there was a lot of attention and excitement, and then the price dropped. Although we see Meebits are back up today. Meebits are now, we had the floor price going all the way up to something like
9 ETH.
9 ETH on the Meebit side. So there's a lot of frenzy. There's still a lot of activity in the NFT market. Things are still bullish. And then the most bullish of all, or the most interesting of all, was a new project that just came out of nowhere, 4 days old, maybe 5 days old. Project called Loot, entered into the scene out of nowhere, and now has a 13 ETH floor. And we'll tell you a little bit more about what Loot is. It's very different to anything else you've seen. It's not a character set. It isn't well designed. It actually just looks like a text file with a bunch of words. Like, I'm looking over here, it says hard leather armor, death root, ornate greaves of skill, strutted leather gloves, divine hood, necklace of enlightenment, gold ring, hard leather belt, Grimshout grave wand of skill +1. And that's what's a Loot card. I first looked at this and I was like, I don't know what that is. How do I even think about this? But the NFT world blew up, and so did the loots. And these loot boxes went from free, anyone could have claimed one, to now sitting at floor price of 13 ETH. And we've seen the most rare one sell for 200 Ethereum, all in 4 days. So what is it? What is Loot? Well, it's a project that was launched by Dom Hoffman. He's been involved in a number of different projects like Nouns DAO and a couple of others. So there is an effect on who the creator is, but it basically started on him tweeting saying, anyone want to jam this over the weekend? A text-based fantasy crypto loot, use your imagination to play, and maybe a smart contract. And within 24 hours, they released Loot. He tweeted about it. People started minting it, and then the craziness started to happen. So the best way I can describe Loot is that it's a new way to create a game from what they call the bottom up, as opposed to a top-down approach. Top-down approach, creator thinks of all the dynamics of what's going to be happening in Loot, thinks of all the different elements, thinks of the character design, and releases pretty much a complete project with a roadmap, with everything that you expect to happen. And then you, as the collector, go in and collect whatever that NFT is that you got. Like with Bored Apes, that's what you would expect. What this has done is turned it on its head and said, no, we're just going to give you a text file with some attributes. And that's all you get. And we're going to keep it completely open source, and we're going to let the community decide what that means. What does it mean? What kind of game are you going to create? What kind of extensions? What does it mean if you have this card versus that card? And we've seen people starting to build a whole bunch of new features, new functionality, new characters, new designs, all within the community, with anyone who holds one of these Loot cards with these attributes now starting to build on top of it in a truly decentralized open source kind of way. And this is why people are so excited about the project, because it's really up to the imagination, completely allows anyone to get involved with it and start creating different derivatives of what you could do with Loot and build up an entire new metaverse and game. So it's 5 days in. Where does it go? We don't know, but that's what's happening with Loot.
All I keep thinking about is when you were reading those words, I felt like you were a drunk guy at a bar, just rambling random things. I was like, "What the hell is he talking about?"
Well, when I was a kid, I used to play D&D, and those were the kind of phrases that were there. You know, you had your blade mail mace +1, and you brought it in with your avatar stick. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Loot. It's a project to watch. We've seen the community go crazy about it, and I think there's something there. I think it's something unique and different. We've seen many 10,000 PFP plays, and this clearly the market is saying, well, they're looking for something else, and this is that.
Mind blown. We covered it very briefly. We did have winter, and by winter, we're talking about like Game of Thrones. Winter's coming, where the market was very down yesterday, and people were selling for cheaper than normal. Prices were coming down. People are getting out of the NFT game. A lot of the big influencers said, just wait. And like you said, I believe it lasted 12 hours, right? Prices came right back up. People said, all right, Ethereum price is high, but you know what? We're just going to let it rock, and things are coming back to normal, which is good to see. I want to bring on Ezra because there is some other exciting news that happened in the sports car world, but I actually want to loop in Ezra and talk to him about it. I want to get his take on this whole madness in NFTs, and I really want to get deep into the fractionalization of everything. So without further ado, we have my man Ezra from Collectable. Welcome to Goats in the Metaverse, buddy. How you doing?
Thanks, guys. I'm good. Thanks for having me. I was actually being entertained. I was just sitting here listening to your show. I was enjoying it. So you're gonna ruin it by having me on as a guest now.
No, we're gonna get some valuable insights, and we're gonna learn more about what Collectable does and your backstory. Yeah. And before we even get into that, there's some big news that happened in the sports car world. Fanatics is making deals left and right. They announced this week, football, no more Panini. Now we're going to be, now Fanatics is going to take over the card space. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's, it definitely caught a lot of people by surprise, for sure. I'll say that. Look, it's still very early in this, right? I think this is a relatively fresh announcement. People are trying to digest it, and we're definitely waiting for more headlines. I mean, look, overall, my overarching sort of takeaway is I think it's very bullish for the sports card space. I think it's very bullish for the alternative asset space. Anytime you have very well capitalized companies who are showing interest in a market and being quite aggressive with their tactics to establish a dominant position, they're probably doing it for a reason, right? I don't think that they're going to get into an industry and do what they're doing unless they had firm conviction that this was an industry that had real tailwinds and real growth to it, right? So I think overall, I mean, change is uncomfortable for a lot of people. I know there's a lot of companies who will be negatively affected by this. Collectable probably is not one of them. But overall, I think it's change, but it's change that will bring innovation, change that will bring sort of a new way of doing things, and it's more capital being infused into the space. I think generally, if you just follow these sort of flows of funds, that tells you a lot. And one thing that we were seeing consistently is that bigger companies, larger companies, more mainstream sort of sports and sports business companies are taking a real interest in collectibles, whether they're physical collectibles, whether they're digital collectibles. All that I think is it just means that there's something here, and I think that it speaks to the real growth potential of both digital and physical collectibles for many years to come.
Awesome. And for our audience that's not familiar with Collectable, tell us a little bit about collectable.com.
Collectable, yeah. So we are the leading fractional ownership platform for physical collectibles today. We very well might get into digital in the future, but for now we're solely focused on physical sports collectibles, really high-end blue chip stuff. We really focus on assets that are of the utmost sort of cultural and historical relevance ones that it would be difficult for you to either source or to acquire personally, right? So we do a great job of sort of sourcing, curating, just sort of amazing artifacts from sports, whether cards, memorabilia, game worn photographs, tickets, you name it, we have it, and we bring it to our community, which is comprised of literally anyone who's based in the U.S. over the age of 18. That's the only requirement. You got to be a real person over the age of 18, and in the States, and you can participate and be an owner in some of the most iconic assets in sports. Right. And I think one thing that we're definitely seeing, whether it's digital or physical, is that we are entering, if not we're already in, the era of ownership, right? The era where people are getting skin in the game. They want skin in the game, whether it's a project, whether it's an asset. People want real tangible ownership of things that they care about, things that they participate in, right? And so I think this is just another extension of that, and it's been a really exciting time for the industry and for our company.
Why do you think someone should think about owning a fractional share of a collectible? I grew up collecting cards and got a little bit of nostalgia and warm fuzzy feelings when I look at it in my drawer and it's over there. But over here, I am buying a piece of a collectible moment, but I don't own it. It's not with me. I can't touch it. I can't see it. What's up? Why are people doing this? It seems a little weird. Why?
Yeah, I've been on the record. I can't even tell you how many times I'm actually sick of hearing myself say it, but it's catchy, right? It's a mix of passion and profits. It really is. It's a mix of passion and profits, right? There certainly is that pride of ownership. It's fun. It's enjoyable. It's sports, and in our world, it's sports, or in your world, it's sports and culture, and and all that stuff. So it's fun to be able to say you own this, but there's also a real monetary, real financial component to it. There are indices and data which suggest that sports cards, iconic sports cards and memorabilia have outperformed the S&P 500 by almost 500%. Right? Wow. We've seen in the world of high-end sports collectibles, at least, there's data that tracks back almost a century. And what really interested me in this originally was not only do you have that passion component, not only is it just fun to think about and to say you own it, but this has produced outsized returns in a diversified way. It's been relatively uncorrelated to the broader markets, and it has performed rather impressively during boom cycles and bust cycles. You can go back in history and see how it performed, obviously during COVID, right? But then you can see the dot-com crash. You can see all these different crises, economic crises that occurred in sports collectibles. Sure, there were times obviously where it went down, right? That tends to happen, but it went down far less, right? Because people, I think when there's uncertainty in the world, people liquidate things that they don't really understand and they don't really care about, sort of first, right? They don't liquidate things that they love or things that they want to hold on to or pass down to their kids. So, there's a real economic and financial case in addition to the fact that you have that sort of emotional connection and that just general pride of ownership.
Yeah, so I think a combination of profit and purpose, as you said, it's hard to let go of that purpose when you're looking at the charts. But a stock or something else may be much easier to just let go of. But Ezra, how did you get into this? What got you to be the CEO of Collectable? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, well, I've always grown up sort of in and around this industry or hobby, as people call it. My dad, has been sort of big investor in it, right? For as long as I can remember. He used to go to all the trade shows when I was a kid, and we used to always joke around that he would leave us for 4 days to go with his hobby buddies, as we called them back, his hobby buddies. Where he was actually going was the National Sports Card Convention, which is like the Super Bowl of sports cards, right? So I as I got older, he really kind of taught me the business, and I collected sports cards like every other kid in America. Of course, I lost touch with it, like most kids in America, after a period of time, and I found myself. I was on Wall Street for about 10 years. I worked at a New York City-based hedge fund, and while I was there, I also co-founded a minor league football league, which is still in existence. One of the worst businesses in the entire world you could think of as sort of an undercapitalized minor league football league, but I figured out a way to make it profitable. And we signed a deal with Fox Sports and all that stuff. So, I had this sort of background of capital markets and sort of financial, markets met with sports entrepreneurship with sort of an overlay and understanding of sports collectibles. And really what happened is there were some really interesting things that I started to observe and I started to discuss and, kind of network within the category. And I realized that I thought that this was an opportunity where, again, back to sort of following the flows of money, right? That's really all that I learned when I was on Wall Street, is follow where the money goes. Where the money goes, that's, sort of a really interesting sign, really interesting tell. And you could see real traction, right? Real traction going on in the sports collectible space. You could see rising prices, you could see rising bids, you could see rising media attention, you could see rising, followers counts, you can see rising Google trend. Like, you could just see that there was interest and activity and momentum going into sports collectibles. The more that I started studying it, the more I thought that there was also a business, and that there was also ways that this industry could be improved for the better, right? Improved from a regulatory standpoint, improved, from a liquidity standpoint, improved from a technology standpoint. And so, I really kind of took a leap of faith, quite honestly. And I took a hell of a lot less money to join a company called Collectable that actually was already established. It just wasn't a fractional ownership company. Collectable, for a little background on our business, Collectable was a free data company. We effectively were a data, sort of aggregator. We had API feeds into major sports auction houses, and you could go to our free platform, type in, Mickey Mantle baseball card. It would give you, sort of every data point, I think back to the 1970s, all the prior sales. So through that, we had a sort of a treasure trove of data. We had great relationships. We knew the industry, inside and out. And so I thought, I could bring some of my sort of understanding of sports entrepreneurship, of financial markets, and we could do something pretty special. And that's really just to create, really liquid, sort of fractional ownership model that allowed us to expand the participation pool, to take, a profitable, really exciting, fun part of the world, but make it something more mainstream and give it sort of the facelift that I think it needed in order to gain widespread mainstream attention and acceptance. I think we've done a really good job so far in our first year.
Good pivot. Very good pivot, and great story. I love hearing that, your dad used to go to card shows, and now I'm sure you're going to those card shows, and you it comes full circle, right? You fully understand why he was going. I come from the sports car world, and I think the community there is ginormous, right? And I think everybody's helping each other out. Obviously, everyone's trying to make money, but at the same time, everyone's looking out for each other. And I think once you kind of really dive into that and feel that, you get hooked even more, right? It's the same way like you would if you're going to a sports game and you're sitting next to somebody that's a fan of the same team. So talk to me about what the future of sports cards looks like in your opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's honestly been more innovation and change in sports cards, probably in the ecosystem of sports cards and the major players in sports cards in the past 12 to 18 months, and there probably had been in the last 12 to 18 years. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. Hard to predict, obviously, what the future will have in store. One big theme that I feel very confident about, just knowing everything that I know, is this will continue to become more and more mainstream. Right? I think this will become more and more widely accepted, more and more sort of on par with sports gambling and fantasy sports. I also say, and my compliance guy hates me every time I say it, but I'll say it again, that, I think this is the third-headed monster to fantasy sports and sports gambling. I think people, who are into those two markets will, the more they understand sports collectibles, because I think that really is the big hurdle, right? Is that sports collectibles are just not as intuitive or easy to understand as betting on a game or betting on an outcome or, just picking a player in your fantasy draft, right? I think there's more of an education in sports collectibles, but once you get it, you love it. Once you get it, you stay. Once you get it, you realize that this is a way to get non-binary exposure. This is a way that you can still get that skin in the game. I mean, I think there's an initial educational hurdle, an initial sort of barriers to entry hurdle, but I do believe that what makes sports collectibles particularly interesting, in my view, is that it lives at sort of the intersection of a lot of interesting areas. It lives at the intersection of, as I said, sort of sports speculation, right? Sports gambling, fantasy sports. It's sort of that third way to do it. It also lives at the intersection of sort of alternative asset investment, right? At where we're playing, these are blue chips. These are things that have long history of financial outperformance. So I think there's a lot of ways to kind of look at this market, all of them exciting and all of them, really, really massive areas of growth.
Do you think we're seeing, software eating the world, technology disrupting almost every industry? Do you think the traditional sports collectible market is immune to digitization? You think as more and stuff becomes digitized, do sports cards become even more valuable because maybe there's less of them? Or do people move on and say, well, actually, if this isn't an NFT and I'm not interested in it, and they lose their value? What's your view?
Great question. It really is a great question. I think my base case, and I could totally be wrong about this, my base case is that there is sort of a merger, if you will, of both worlds. I mean, I think we're starting to see it, right? I mean, with Fractional, yeah, I mean, we're dealing in physical items, but if you think about it, we've really taken these physical items and kind of made them digital items, right? It's still backed by a physical item, but if you're owning something fractionally, you're owning it digitally. It just happens to be a real tangible item that was game worn by a player, or game used by a player, or printed by a manufacturer in physical form. I do foresee the card world skewing more and more digital for sure. But I think that's, if you read kind of the tea leaves from Fanatics, it seems like there's going to be sort of a combination of the two, maybe a little hodgepodge of the two, where they're going to potentially be the manufacturer, which goes direct to the consumer, which goes right to the marketplace, which there seems to be sort of a cutting out of the middleman, potentially ultimately cutting out of the physical altogether. One area of the market that I think is going to become increasingly more valuable is game used, game worn items, right? I think, as the world becomes more digital, you're still going to have live sports. I mean, you might have digital sports as well. You might have like Zedrun, which is having, but I don't think physical sports with real athletes and real fans and all that stuff is ever going to go away, right? It's hard to kind of recreate, an item that's game used, game worn. I mean, that's a fact, right? You can photo match that. So, I think things that are unquestionably either of the two will continue to gain in value. I think sports cards in the future might continue to sort of converge into maybe sort of a physical digital hybrid. But I definitely think there's a place for both, right? And I think there's always sort of that nostalgia about physical cards for generations to come that I do not think is going anywhere. And you could also make the case, right? I mean, what's the number one driver of value in collectibles? Scarcity, right? I mean, if they stop printing physical, well, that means there's just less physical. Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's probably not that easy or that simplistic of a view, but I definitely don't think that it's either or. I think it's probably a combination of both. I do think, just like everything in the world, things will continue to trend more digitally, but the things that can't be replicated digitally, I think will continue to gain in prominence. And I'm particularly interested in sort of what this means for game worn, game used memorabilia.
And I agree with you. I think that hybrid model is going to continue, right? You get the game worn RPA, but it might come with an NFT that now gives you access to the actual player. Yep. And you go to a game or you do a one-on-one with him or whatever that is, and that's going to drive up that value even a lot more than that, because maybe you have the card, but maybe they've used the NFT to go hang out with Patrick Mahomes or whoever it is, or maybe they didn't, right? And now you're using that real life experience. Obviously, Michael Rubin is invested with Gary Vee into an NFT company. They have to be thinking about these types of things. And that's how you really re-innovate the entire sports card market and put it on, upside on its head, and make those RPAs that are now selling for 4 million, 5 million, 6 million. Now they might double in price because of the priceless experience that you cannot ever get again.
I think that's actually a great point. I do think that's one of the more exciting things about Fanatics' involvement in this category, right? They obviously have a lot of sort of player exclusives and access, to the Players Association. I mean, one really interesting thing about the deals that they struck is that they're cutting the players into it, right? So the players are now incentivized to get prices higher, right? Because if the prices go higher, if there's more demand, then they're making more money at the end of the day, right? So yeah, I mean, I just think that there's loads of innovation that really hasn't been tapped into. And I think competition is really healthy. Competition makes people better. Competition makes people, be more creative and more innovative. I do think Fanatics' involvement kind of allows for more creativity, more blending of sort of just the general sports world with collectibles. And I think, again, all this, in my opinion, just tells one big narrative, and that's that sports collectibles, whether digital or physical, but sports collectibles are here to stay. Sports collectibles will become more mainstream. They will become more popular. They will become that third-headed monster, if they're not already, that third-headed monster to fantasy sports and sports gambling. I'm really excited about what the future has in store. But one of the big driving forces for collectible, and you're seeing fractional ownership popping up, not just in physical and digital. I mean, Fractional Art, a company which just raised a lot of money, right, in the NFT space. I mean, what you're seeing is just that, prices are getting rich. They're getting rich for the average collector. And so, you need ways where people can get exposure to stuff that at affordable price points. You got to make it more democratic. You got to give people, better access points. And I think that's really where Fractional comes into play. Just like the stock market, I want to own some Facebook, but I'm not Mark Zuckerberg. I can't afford, I don't know, what are they, $1 trillion plus, $1 trillion company at this point. I can't afford $1 trillion, but I can certainly afford to buy whatever amount I want at $350, per share. I think the model, which we sort of rolled out to the physical, you're going to see it across the board, physical, digital, whatever it is. And I just think that it's just a natural evolution and maturation of markets. And I'm really encouraged to see that continue to gain widespread acceptance.
So our tease was that a Doge meme sold for $4 million.
$5 million.
$5 million.
That's a bargain, if you ask me, by the way.
I agree, because now their market cap is $220 million.
Once they fractionalized it.
Once they fractionalized it, and they're selling, shares of, you could own a piece of this meme now. Like, to me, that's just absolutely bananas, right? Like, they made a really bold move and they became really, really rich. But at the same time, whoever is buying a share of that meme, why not, right? Like, maybe that meme is worth $500 million, or maybe it's worth $1 billion. Nobody knows. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I do think that there's this perception of Fractional, which is not something that we've seen, at least, where the perception of Fractional is that Fractional is dumb money, right? That, like, whatever, people don't care what they pay because they're only paying $10 a share, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So if they lose $1, it doesn't matter. We are not seeing that. I mean, that could definitely be happening in other parts of the market. We are not seeing that. We actually have noticed that, we have some pretty sophisticated people who participate in our market, and they're pretty price sensitive. That's not to say it's always efficient, or that there are people who will pay $10 just to say they own it. But yeah, I push back on that notion that, Fractional in and of itself is the mechanism to drive higher prices. What I think is the mechanism to drive higher prices is more participation, right? I mean, I think, at least in our world, at least in sports collectibles at the high end, I mean, you look at some of these auctions, and yeah, they're high prices, but there's not that many participants. There's not that many bidders, right, at that high end. I mean, think about it. You can go from, like a prime example, like you can go for the Hannes Wagner card just sold for $6.6 million in our industry. That looks like chump change in the NFT space, but in our world, it's big money. There weren't that many bidders for that card, right? Because it priced a lot of people out of the market, right? So you're going from, I don't know, tens of bidders to now on Fractional, I mean, thousands, hundreds of thousands, hopefully millions, right? So I just think you're bringing in more buyers, more potential participants, which brings in more demand, and creates more of a supply demand imbalance where the demand hopefully outstrips supply. But I would push back on the notion that just because people can sort of put in lower dollar figures, that becomes dumb money. I mean, I think money spent is quite relative. What could be cheap for someone is a lot of money for someone else. So I would sort of question that, but I do think Fractional certainly allows for more participants, and more participants, I think, generally creates more demand, and more demand creates higher prices.
And tell us, in the collectible model, does Collectable go out and find the the asset that you're going to fractionalize? Do you buy it and then fund it and take the risk on setting that out? How does the actual mechanics of the model work?
Yeah, we've been different from a lot of the fractional companies in our space. We actually we consign almost all of the assets we put on the platform. We have just amazing relationships with a lot of big collectors, auction houses, dealers, you name it. We have relationships and a really strong network. And so we work almost exclusively on a consignment model. So I think we have almost $70 million of sort of assets under management, if you want to call that. And, we've taken on almost, very little inventory risk ourselves. I mean, that has allowed us to kind of scale quickly and, sort of effectively without sort of having to take on inventory risk. Now, we actually have been thinking a lot of internally, should we take more inventory risk? Because we're actually incredibly bullish on the space and believe that the prices you see today will actually be cheap relative to the prices you're going to see down the road if everything that's going to happen, everything that we think is going to happen plays out. So we work almost exclusively on consignment. We are incredibly excited and bullish on the possibilities of what prices could do in the future as this becomes more of an established alternative asset class, as you're able to tie in larger pools of capital, as it becomes more mainstream in terms of just average sports fans understanding and knowing about this market. So it is something we're considering, if we should potentially get more exposure and purchase inventory ourselves.
And you guys purchase or you guys consign blue chips, right? What comes out on your platform is the rarest of the rare, things that one would not normally have access to, big ticket items. So putting you in the spot a little bit, I know you said you've been following the NFT market. What are your thoughts on, the blue chip NFTs that are breaking crazy records on a minute by minute basis? Do you believe that, if the NFT market continues to boom, that those blue chips are just going to continue to skyrocket?
Yeah, so I'll caveat that by saying I'm not an expert in the NFT space. I mean, I obviously follow it, of course, like everyone does, and I'm probably a more interested observer in certain projects than I am others, of course. I am a believer in the NFT space. I really am. I mean, I think it's hard to be a believer in the physical space without also believing in the digital space. I really do. I see tremendous opportunity in the digital, and I see a lot of convergence of the two worlds over time. You're seeing a lot of convergence of the worlds right now. Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen is that a lot of the same characteristics that have been tried and true in the physical collecting space really still remain true in the digital space, right? It's about rarity and it's about relevance, right? Rarity and relevance. And I think as long as you have something that is scarce and rare, and in our world we call it low population, and as long as there's not that much supply of something, and as long as people really care about it and there's demand for it, I think prices continue to go up. So I think it's really all about rarity and relevance, and as long as those two boxes are checked, I don't think it's going to matter whether it's physical or digital. I think there are going to be assets people want to own. And I just think overall, collectibles as a category will continue to gain relevance. I mean, I always say that it's my belief that if you look at the sort of portfolio construction, thought process. I mean, most people are familiar with stocks and bonds, right, and real estate and commodities, right? But, I think collectibles, just as a category, will get mainstream acceptance as you need some allocation to collectibles, whether or not that's a couple basis points or 1% or 5, whatever that is. I mean, that's obviously dependent on your own personal risk tolerance and your own situation, all that stuff. But I think collectibles will just be sort of grouped into that category of, if you want a diversified exposure, you need exposure to it, right? So, I think as that narrative continues to play out, as long as there's relevance and rarity, I think prices will continue to go up.
What's next for Collectable?
A lot. I mean, we're working on a lot of stuff. I mean, we are trying to build, really sort of holistic brand, right? A really sort of holistic company that kind of attacks the industry at multiple levels. I mean, I think, our main objective for year one was to build a brand, was to become a big name in the category. And so you've seen us do everything from just iconic offerings on the Fractional exchange to we signed a joint venture with IMG and Endeavor, where we're going to be doing live events series, based on collectibles as an asset class, right? We'll be doing that in partnership with MGM and DraftKings and UFC at the UFC Apex Center. It's going to be sort of a collaboration of big brands in this category, sort of making collectibles more and more relevant in the sports space, sports world. So I think you're going to see us do live events. We've got a lot of content. You guys are producing great content now too. I think content's a huge thing, right? I think we've launched 6 or 7 shows already. So we're almost to the point where we can almost pitch a collectible network to a streaming show. I mean, so I think you're just going to see us continue doing what we're doing, which is move fast and focus on that rarity and the relevance, build a community, and really help establish sports collectibles as a mainstream thing that people should do and people should care about and people should think about, because I think the data is on our side. I think the trends are on our side. I think we're entering, a point where people want and demand skin in the game. People want and demand ownership of things that they care about, and I think that certainly falls into the sports collectible realm. That certainly lends itself well to fractional ownership, and I think that this is a category that just has a lot of growth potential, whether physical or digital. I think collectibles, really has a lot of good things going for it.
Ezra, if people want to find out more about how to enter the world of collectibles and fractional ownership, where do they go? How do they get started?
Yeah. So we're app only if you want to transact right now. So it's iOS and Android, Collectable, COLLECTABLE. You can check us out more on our website, www.collectable.com. Follow us on every social media platform at Collectable App. It's been a really exciting time, and I appreciate you guys helping to kind of shed a light on our story.
And we have to ask you the question: when are we going to see NFTs on your platform?
It's a great question. I mean, look, we are certainly monitoring everything like you guys are. I think there certainly is demand for it. I know some of the other fractional companies who do more sort of physical collectibles are starting to dabble in that, CryptoPunks and apes and all that stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if you see it sooner rather than later. Sooner rather than later. The truth of the matter is we've got just an amazing supply of iconic stuff that we're a little bit more comfortable with today, just in terms of the sort of history of data, the history of sort of the investment thesis behind it. But again, I think our team is very excited about the potential of digital collectibles. We're very excited about the potential of NFTs, and with every passing day, we're getting more and more comfortable with it. And as soon as we decide it's go time, we will dive right in.
Well, when you're ready to dive in, we have some punks and some apes and some Z-Run horses or whatever you need. We've got them here for you on Goats in the Metaverse.
Fantastic.
So
good to know.
We'd be game to fractionalize one of our assets and be one of the first. So we'll be excited to have that conversation.
I love it. Fantastic. We will, for sure, guys.
Ezra, it's been a pleasure. We loved having you on, and we look forward to keeping an eye. I'm going to make a prediction because I'm bold and I like to predict. I'm going to make a prediction. You guys will be in the NFT space very soon. And I'm going to say, since you're sports only, we'll see an unbred, unraced Z1 be your first NFT that you guys are going to put on your platform.
You think that rather than an iconic NBA Top Shot moment?
Yes, I think that's going to be the one. Maybe I'm wrong. We shall see. But if I'm right, I want the props on it when you come back on the show.
You got it. Well, I will say in passing, one thing that I love about that project is the ability to generate passive income or yield, right, or income streams off of that. I actually think that that's a very interesting next chapter for collectibles. Is I think one of the sort of bear cases on collectibles in general is like, you own something that's sort of greater fool's theory, right? You're not actually you can't make any money off it. It's just, you can make money if someone's willing to pay more than what you bought it for. Right? I don't think that has to be the case. I think there are ways to create whether synthetic yields or dividend streams or income streams that kind of are thrown off by collectibles. I think there's a lot of ways to do that. And what I appreciate about that particular project is they've obviously found sort of a way to produce potential income streams. So I think that's something that's really interesting and will continue to make collectibles more and more interesting over time.
I think Zed is the most underrated NFT project out there. I'll continue to say that. Yes, people are getting very, very rich in a lot of different other areas, and Zed is quietly sitting there building. Long term, we will see the day when you walk into MGM or a casino in Vegas and bet on your favorite digital horse. I'll be smoking my cigar in the lounge.
I love it, guys.
Ezra, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks,
look
guys.
forward to keeping tabs on Collectable, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks again,
so much,
brother.
Thanks, Ezra. Have a great one.
All right. Well, that was a lot of fun.
The world is going collectibles, and the world is going fractional ownership. I think.
And you know what? You, my friend, gave the advice last week, I believe, or 2 episodes ago.
It was last week. Yeah,
it was last week, that the best way to jump in and try out a product is to buy a share. And I do think that is the easiest way.
Share of a blue chip, the share of the
share of blue chip. I mean, look, in essence, listen, if you're going to go and you call your stockbroker and you say, look, I have X amount of dollars to invest, I am sure that, he's going to put you into a blue chip, right? He's not going to give you a penny stock to invest into. He's going to say you should or he's going to put you in some sort of mutual fund, right? Or something that's going to give you some high gains. A buddy of mine was looking to get into sports cards, and I said, go check out, Collectable and buy a share. I believe you bought a share of a Jackie Robinson card or whatever it was. And I think that's a good introduction, right? Because you're starting to do the research, you're researching into the player, you're starting to understand, you're starting to hopefully see some returns. And
it's also being curated for you. You've got some people that are looking for the assets that they believe will hold value over time. They're doing a lot of the work, sifting through everything that's out there to determine what's potentially valuable. And it's a great, like you say, introduction into the world of these collectibles. And once you start doing more of that, maybe that's how you continue, or you start getting more confidence and you want to own your own, and you can start going down that path. So I do think it's a great strategy. I think we're going to start seeing the fractionalization of everything. Soon your real estate is going to be fractionalized. People will be able to put up their house and sell shares in it. And all of the things that you're seeing happening in the gaming world, in the collectible world, is going to happen into bigger assets and become more and more readily available. And like Ezra said to us, it's really about increasing access and ownership. Why should you only be able to own a Manhattan property when you have $5 million? You should be able to put $50 into a property and say, that's the property that I want to own a piece of. Let me put $50 in a fractional ownership of that and be able to get there. So that's the way it's going. And it's happening fast. We saw it first with Doge. Now we're seeing it with basketball cards and collectibles. Soon it's going to be our apartments. But I'm excited for it.
I'm excited, and I'm excited to see more and more people start investing, right? I think, like, myself personally, like, when I made a few dollars, I was like, what do I do, right? Like, do I call a stockbroker? Like, who do I even speak to about this? And I think now with NFTs, sports cards, right? These are things that we could kind of grasp onto. We could do the research, and the research is done on, Twitter and social media and places and YouTube platforms that we're comfortable with, because this is what we use on a day in, day out basis. And I think this is just going to become the norm. Yes, we're going to own real estate. Yes, we're going to own stocks. But I believe as we continue to get more and more comfortable with collectibles, with NFTs, with other alternative investments, our portfolios are going to become larger in in those spaces.
I just can't wait till I call my accountant and tell him about my digital cats and my my loot text script that now is worth 10 Ethereum, and my virtual horse, and just see how he figures out everything that needs to happen in my estate planning and asset management from there. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good experience.
It's going to be fun. Well, we appreciate everybody joining us. Before we go, if you are new to the show, if you haven't subscribed, Yossi, tell us why we need to subscribe to Goats in the Metaverse, besides learning more about interesting things in the collectible space and meeting new people. We also give you free money.
Free money.
Money.
Free money by subscribing to our channel. You get the chance of winning the contents of the Goat Vault.
The Goat Vault.
The Goat Vault is where we buy NFTs and collectibles on a weekly basis. We're getting you into the drops that everyone's chasing, and we're adding whatever we acquire into the vault. Stanley and I are taking $10,000 of our own money to buy NFTs. I can't remember exactly how much we've put in so far. I think it's about $3,500. It's worth $35,000 today. So that's all you need to know. And if you subscribe, we get to 5,000 subscribers. We're going to hand out the content of that vault, and you could get yourself some big NFT money. So subscribe today. Tell your friends, tell your family.
Tell your mama.
Importantly, well, this is the show where, as we learn, we'll be teaching you about, talking to you about all the things that are happening in the world of collectibles and NFTs, and bringing on all the people building the communities, the content, and all the platforms that you're going to be using in the quest to build out the metaverse.
We'll see you guys next week. Let's see what happens. Winter, summer, you never know. Make sure you tune in.
Well, let's think, Stanley. Well, let's do a little prediction for next week. Are we in an up market or in a down market by this time this next week?
I think we're gonna go steady. Then we're gonna go up. Then we're gonna go down. Then we're gonna go up. Then we're gonna go down. I have no idea. This is it is very tough. I mean, you're talking about a down market, and loot, which I still don't really understand what it is selling for 13 Ethereum. I mean, it's not really a down market, no matter how you slice it. And I had this conversation with somebody who said, "Hey, we're in a down market." I said, "What are you up on your apes?" "Oh, apes are worth, let's say, whatever it was, $150,000. What did you pay?" 2 Ethereum. I said, "You realize if they go to 4 Ethereum, you doubled your money in 4 months, which is unheard of in any other market business whatsoever." Like it's ludicrous, right? Like if you really break this down into legitimate, like,
but that's only fair for anyone who entered early. If someone bought,
100%
a day ago, sure,
100%.
Then they're worried, and that's why we saw people buying, a punk for 120 ETH and then sell it the next day for 100 Ethereum. They panic sold. They saw their prices going down and they panicked. So don't panic. Lesson number one.
Or don't invest money you don't have. Don't try to chase. Right? It's the same thing. You walk into a casino. You lose $1,000. It's your last $1,000. Then you're going to the ATM to get more money to try to win your original $1,000. Then you're down $2,000. Don't chase. Like,
speaking of being down $2,000, did LeBron James?
No, LeBron. Where you at? Where you
on, LeBron?
It's coming. We didn't take like a full week between our 2 shows. It's coming. I could feel it. I can feel it.
We're gonna watch out. We're gonna start tracking Stanley's predictions.
I know, right?
James,
and then like Ezra just got off, and he's like, "There's no way we're getting a Zed run or as our first NFT just to fight that guy." But you know what? I'm gonna keep making my predictions.
We're gonna keep a scorecard. We're gonna start tracking Stanley's predictions, and we'll just see. We'll use that either as a indicator of where the market's going, or we're going to counter trade once we've got a better idea.
Yossi, you're a VC, right? What do you need? 1 out of 10 investments to become successful? Is that what it is? If 1 out of 10
to shoot the lights out to become successful,
right? So if I'm 1 for 10 or 2 for 10 in my prediction,
we'll take it.
I'm successful. I'm a successful VC or somebody to predict stuff.
All right. Well, that was fun.
I'm ready for next week. If you're in the United States, have a great Labor Day, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.